Something weird always happens.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit. Today we are joined by Megan Senese, who is the co-founder and principal of Stage Guide and the co-host of the So Much to Say podcast. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's always fun to be on the other side of the microphone.
Can we start off? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the people you help?
Yeah. So I love to say that nobody ever dreams of being a legal marketer, but yet here we are. My claim to fame is I started in accounting. I started in KPMG, mostly because I thought it was a radio station. So it's a lot of mishaps where you fall into things and then you never leave. So I started in accounting and then jumped to big law, and then we never kind of looked back. And about 3 years ago, launched my own business with my business partner, Jen Ramsey, in San Diego. And we have been helping lawyers and law firms and legal marketers ever since.
Wow. So when people come to you, when people come to Stage Guide, what are some of the problems that they're experiencing that you're helping them solve?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why our company exists is when we were still in-house. When I say in-house, I mean at Big Law in the marketing business development department. Our poor legal marketers are stretched so thin to help all of our lawyers who are out there having to service the client, bring in the work, think about business development, think about marketing, think about visibility, do your CLEs, try and live a life outside of the firm. And our legal marketing and business development components and friends are stretched really thin. And so even if you are blessed to have a huge department of 40, 50, 60, maybe even 100 people, which would be gigantic, you're still servicing 1,000 lawyers, right? Maybe 800 lawyers. So everyone isn't really getting the one-on-one support that they need. And that is why Stage exists, so that our lawyers who are coming to us to grow their revenue in a way that is authentic to them, they're getting somebody who is experienced. We've worked in big law, and now in the last 3 years, we know what works for our business and we know what works for our lawyer clients. And we had to build an entire structure from nothing. So we're able to take our big law experience and then also talk to people about what works.
Now, you've worked with big law partners as well as boutique firm founders.
Yeah.
Is your approach to helping them grow their revenue, is it a similar approach? Is it a very custom tailored approach to each individual client? How does your approach differ depending upon who you're working with?
Yeah. So in the beginning, if you had asked me this maybe 3.5 years ago before the business, I would have been like, oh, solo is completely different than big law. And that is actually not the case at all.
Really?
It's more that each person is different, right? And so what are you going after? Where are you in your process of how comfortable are you with business development? How are you approaching business development, right? And also the way that we are defining it at Stage is that one size doesn't fit all. And so business development really is about building your relationships in a way that everyone is terrified of being the icky salesperson, of being that used car salesman, because that person isn't listening to you, right? They're just kind of shoving things at you that maybe you don't want, and you leave feeling gross. And so those are the reasons why lawyers are coming to us. And it doesn't matter, and I love to pick on Kirkland because they're the biggest, right? It doesn't matter if you're a Kirkland corporate lawyer or a solo M&A lawyer, right? Those issues are the same. How do I make sure that people remember me? How do I make sure that I'm making a difference? And how do I stay top of mind? That's across the entire industry, right? It doesn't matter where you sit.
Right. And can we talk a little bit about, what does it look like if these, firm owners do not address those issues and don't address these issues with their business development? What does that look like?
I'm assuming not a lot of sales, not a lot of revenue. I think it comes back to our focus is on the corporate side. So a lot of the times now that we're on this other side, that we own our own business, we have a lot of personal injury people reaching out to us. That's just not a space that we know. And for me, that's completely different because that's on a personal one-to-one. for completely different services. For us, it is about, unfortunately, doing all the things, but in a way that makes sense for you, right? So you can't just throw up a whole bunch of money on marketing and advertising and hope people call you. At least that's
Right.
not been our approach, right? If that was, then you wouldn't have to do any individual outreach. And so you have to do both. You have to do marketing and business development and outreach. Oh, I hear a little echo. Do you hear it?
Yeah, there was an odd there was an odd little echo there for a second, but you're back now. We're all good.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's so good. So good you wanna hear it twice. So you have to do both, right? You can't, from our perspective, in my years and years of big law and now in running our own business, we had to get clients in the door who are lawyers, who are legal providers. We're able to apply both, right? So you have to do all the things, but also lean into the things that you like. So when I say all the things, for me, that is finding what works for that individual person. I love LinkedIn, so I continue to use LinkedIn, right? But I have lots of lawyers who are like, "I don't wanna use that." That's
Right.
fine, right? You don't have to be dragged along on a business development activity or a marketing activity that doesn't suit you.
Right. And I mean, I'm kind of curious. So it is a very custom tailored approach to each individual. Do you find, is there any sort of self reflexivity that goes into that when you're trying to develop your own business, when you're trying to develop Stage Guide? I mean, does that turn inward?
Do I try to take the approaches that I learned from other people and apply it to my business?
Yeah,
Yeah, of
absolutely.
course. I mean, I think it goes round and round, right? For me, it's always, I think that's the beauty of being a business owner, and whether you work in a big firm or you're a solo, you do own your book. A lot of firms are set up that way. And so if you're not thinking about, hey, that approach looks interesting and I'm going to try it, for me, I feel like then that's when you get stale and stagnant. And the other thing I would say, though, is just because it worked for somebody else doesn't always mean it's going to work for you. So
Right.
you want to make sure that you're finding an approach that feels authentic, right? Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to start golfing because that's not something I like, right? But if someone else really enjoys golfing and that is how they're getting clients in the door, they should continue to do that. But that doesn't mean it's the only approach. And so it is a lot more work for us at Stage to tailor it in this way, right? It's really bespoke. It's really custom to each individual lawyer, whether they are brand new baby partner or they have been practicing for years and years and years. It's much more work for us, but I believe it's more impactful for the individual lawyer who is looking for that
Right.
growth.
And can we talk about, was there a moment when you knew, when you realized that you needed to make a business of this and go out on your own and start your own business, and that this was something that you could do better away from big law and on your own guiding businesses?
I'm shaking my head because I had never imagined that we would be business owners. It was just never something I thought about. It was all my partner, Jen's idea. Her wild idea is how we always like to frame it. Essentially, she was doing a Peloton ride, um, and the instructor was asking to be the CEO of your own life. And we had felt a little burnt out with Big Law at the time, and she had this idea and said, "What if we worked for ourselves and worked with the clients that we liked and did the things that we wanted to do?" And we took a giant risk. We had absolutely no clients when we launched, very little capital when we launched. We basically had nothing, and so we built the brand, all of our clients, everything from scratch, and it will be 3 years
Oh,
in
wow.
January. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about Super Speedy Senese and how that nickname came to be?
Yeah, so Senese is my married name, so it's a newer name, if you will. My sister gave me that nickname. I was always, fast, even just growing up. I have to say I am trying to slow down, and trying to enjoy some of the moments, but Super Speedy Senese is because even my whole family now, my immediate house is we're all like this. We just do everything really fast, and it's catchy and it's sticky, and it kind of reminds me of a, like, Tasmanian devil, running. I just have a lot of energy. My house has a lot of energy, and my sister lovingly named me and my entire family Super Speedy Seneses because we're always doing stuff fast. So if you want something done fast, we can do it. I can paint your house really fast, but just like don't ask me to do the like trim work. Like that's not my specialty. So again, leaning into the things you're good at, right?
So do you find that sort of, drive, that sort of energy, that sort of quickness, does that help or hinder you in the business world?
I'm sure it could be both, right? I
Right.
have an excessive amount of energy, which is really good for driving a business, running a business. It is really time intensive. It is exhausting at times. I believe someone had said to me when we were launching, like you really get to know yourself when you're running your own business because every insecurity issue can come out. And I believe that also comes out when I'm talking to our clients, right? They're like, "Oh, that person didn't respond. Obviously they hate me." Like, no, they probably didn't respond because they're busy or whatever. And so I think there's a benefit in being really persistent and having a lot of energy and keep going forward. That's part of sales. That's part of the development. I think where it might hurt would be if I'm not thinking about things, and I try to be a little more intentional about I'm not super risky, even though I launched a business with nothing. Um, so I try to be really intentional about what our next step is, but it's just an excessive amount of energy. So
Now, you blend strategic coaching with an accountability framework.
yeah.
And I'd like to discuss that accountability framework, what that is, and what is the role of accountability in business development.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like the word accountability. Like, I want to be held accountable. Kind of sounds like you might even be getting in trouble, right? Like, I'm going
Right.
to hold you accountable. Sounds super aggressive and like scary. And I don't want that to be like, this should be fun. Like, the business development
Right.
piece should be fun, particularly when if you're dealing with that like heavier substance, right? I have a couple of some lawyers on the litigation side where their cases are really heavy, and this should be the funner part, right? And so the accountability is again tailored on what works for each individual person. Some people like real kind of old school reminders, and that's where we can come in. Hey, did you do this, right?
Right.
Other people know that when we have a meeting coming up, that they can report back on things. I have some people who want to send me a weekly email. Of course, I want people to do their things, but it doesn't matter to me which way that they go about it. I'm here to help facilitate and guide, come up with new ideas, keep track of things for them, and walk them through some of that mindset that might be stopping them. Like I sent a proposal and they obviously hate it because they didn't answer me, right? Like that's not true,
Right.
right? And so being held accountable is just knowing that you have someone else to rely on that doesn't work in your firm. You can tell them really what's going on and talking about a way forward that works for them. If you are just in trial for 2 months, I'm not going to be chasing you to do business development. You can't,
Right.
right?
Right.
If you are in the middle of taking care of an elderly parent and they passed away, which is these are all situations that have happened,
Right.
I'm not chasing you to do business development, right? Like you
Right.
have to meet people where they are. And I think the more you have a personal relationship with if a coach or even your business development team, the more that people can tailor that for them, for the lawyers who are
Right.
so busy in tiny little increments you have to build, right?
Right. And that sort of ties back into this idea of the importance of authenticity in the
Yeah.
workplace. And can you share with us a little bit about sort of how you help lawyers win with authenticity?
Yeah, I think there has been a big shift primarily post COVID to bring your full self to work. And I think there's still a stigma where people feel like you have to show up at work and I'm going to put on some corporate armor, if you will. I definitely did
Right.
the same thing. And I believe because of the way I show up on LinkedIn primarily and how I've shared stories that are personal, that makes people reach out to me and realize that their stories are safe with me. And
Mm.
that is what starts this relationship forward. And then they begin to share some of their stories on LinkedIn primarily, but we've also been able to talk about ways, maybe LinkedIn's not for them, right?
Right.
Also talked about ways where you can show up inviting your contacts to do something that you like, or
Right.
you can ask a contact about them. Like today I just posted about asking a slightly more detailed question. Not how are you, but sometimes I like to do on a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how is your energy today? Or how tired are you, right? And
Right.
then you can have additional follow-ups. But I have a lot in the past, we had a lot of lawyers who just didn't ask people things, not because they didn't care, but they didn't feel like it was the place. And I think
Right.
that's starting to shift, and it's really working through, how do you ask those questions? How do you show up as yourself? And then how do you build relationships with people so that the business can come?
And just that little shift in wording can make that big of a difference. That's pretty impactful.
Yeah, I think people are terrified of networking, right? I was definitely in the beginning terrified of networking. And my partner and I did a presentation to women in finance. And actually, the very first question that we had was, I wanted it to be wild and kind of unhinged and different, which was, do you like pickles? And at first, it was, it's this kind of I hate pickles. Um, and so that's why if you don't like something, you're going to remember that the other person didn't like it, right? And do you
Right.
like mushrooms? Do you hate pickles, anchovies, whatever? It's benign. It's not your life's secrets, but you could ask people certain questions just to get to know them more. Now I'm using like an outrageous question for shock value, right?
Well,
But it was just to show, like, how do you start that conversation? Well,
sure.
I hate mushrooms because my grandpa always put them on pizza or whatever, right? And then you have this additional piece of content and additional stories that you can talk to people about.
Well, and you're discussing, the importance of sort of sharing stories.
Mm.
Do you think you could share with us a story of, say, a client or a business or a firm owner that you really saw a positive transformation in them or their business as a result of your help and guidance?
A beautiful success story. Yeah. So I think, again, I love having people share on LinkedIn because it's such an easy way to get people to engage and share their personal side. I think for me, what's been really great is that I've been able to bring all of these people together. So I'm going to tell you like a sidestep story. So
Sure.
essentially, what winds up happening, or what I've done in the past, is I've brought women in legal together. We did a virtual networking session, and it sounds kind of boring, but I had some outrageous questions. I had people kick off, and they're all either general counsels or big law partners or solo owners. And at the end of each of these sessions, everybody then shares either their big ask, something that they need, or how they can help. And
Hmm.
then I send around like a live sheet, and people have booked each other for podcasts. People have referred work to each other. They've hired each other. People have gotten conflicted out of things and given, matters to other people. And so that's just one example of something really small that has turned into
Right.
something really big and has resulted in a ripple across this group of women who don't know each other at all, saw a LinkedIn post, decided to join this virtual Zoom with some random lady, right? And then was able to walk away with either visibility or a piece of work.
And it's interesting because, there's kind of a recurring theme here that I'm picking up on, that is this notion that something small, do you
Mm.
like pickles? You know, I mean, and just these little questions can kind of have these big ripple effects. Can you maybe speak a little bit on the importance of just those little moments that lead to bigger things?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of I love that you picked that up. I'm a big fan of small and like slow and steady and
Right.
compounding interest, right? Um, because I don't I think it's really overwhelming. If I was to come on here and say, and I'm sure people do, right? If I was to come on and say, "Hey, you're going to have to do a 15-week campaign. You're going to have to post every single day on LinkedIn, and then you're going to have to comment every single thing and send an individual message. And it has to be really insightful and really impactful. And you have to show how smart you are and make sure you connect with everybody." I think that would be really intimidating. And so if you can focus on something small that makes it a lot more accessible. And if
Right.
you're taking away the pressure, then that's when your true self, I think, personally can come out. And that's what I have seen kind of time and time again. Even for
Right.
my hesitant LinkedIn users, they'll
Right.
say, "Well, my that might work for you, right? Like that works for you. You work for yourself, but my clients aren't on LinkedIn." So, okay,
Right.
sure. And how did you find me again? They're like, "Oh yeah, LinkedIn." Right. So I think some of that strips away. If you're focusing on one small thing, it makes it a lot more accessible. And that comes back to the accountability, right? So a
Right.
lot of the times we'll say, if you can just spend 5 minutes doing business development every day, if you have more time, great. But if you can do 5 minutes every single day, you'll see an increase in whatever you're trying to achieve.
Well, and sharing those small moments and not, these big, this is going to change your life moments, that kind of ties back into what we were discussing with that role of authenticity again, right?
Right, because then you can show people what it's like to work with you. So if you're remembering them and you're following up with them and you said, "Oh, I remember that you said XYZ and now I saw this article and I thought of you," that's how you're starting to build the relationship where you can solve their problem and then they can hire you.
Well, and I think there's a great irony in the fact that, super Speedy Senese is preaching slow and steady approach.
Well, you can be two things at once, right? There's a duality in every single one of us. So that is funny. Yeah, I like that.
So, can we talk a little bit about your podcast, the So Much to Say podcast, and what that's about and how that got started?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so it's So Much to Say, a legal podcast for people, with a play on that it's for people, and you can be all different parts of legal. It is focusing on the human side of the legal space and trying to tell more stories of kindness and leadership. We have big law partners, solo law firm owners. We've had best-selling authors on. We had a chief deputy attorney general for the state of Arizona on. So we've had some for what felt like big gets for us, and
Wow.
so much of that has come to be because I simply just asked, which is also
Right.
kind of another like how did you get that person? How did you get the CFO of the largest law firm in the entire world on your podcast? I
Yeah.
just said, "Hey, I'd like to have you on our podcast." And they said, "Okay." um, so it was another way to share our platform and let other people have a way to communicate and express themselves that maybe they're not either doing on LinkedIn or they are doing on LinkedIn and I want to hear them, talk a little bit more. So it's been really one of the best parts of our job is to be able to share people's stories.
Has there been anything, and I'm sure that there's numerous things, but could you share with us something that maybe is a lesson or an insight that you have learned from a guest on your podcast that you have been able to then apply to your own business?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I learned something every episode and every episode I'm like, "Oh, that was my favorite." So every episode is our favorite. And it's been just this amazing privilege to be able to share people's stories. We have an episode coming out in December 11th, I guess, where it's a heavy episode and
Mm.
it really goes into this person's story, their history growing up, and it's not particularly happy, to be honest. And I believe that's like the purpose of our show is to help people share these stories in legal and that you don't really know all the time what maybe your coworkers are going through and maybe you can approach different situations with different perspectives and having a
Sure.
little more perspective on what people are going through.
Is there a story or, an interview or anything like that that you've had as a result of your podcast that sort of changed how you see lawyers and changed how you see working with lawyers?
Oh my gosh, I think leaving big law just in general has shifted how I
Yeah.
think about lawyers. For growing up in big law, there was always, as a support staff or non-lawyer, it was always this felt like it was a them versus us or a us versus them situation. And having not working in any of those firms now, I do feel like we're getting to see all of this human side of people where they're talking about their struggles. They're talking about mental health. We had Emily Logan Stedman on, and she talked about how she struggled with mental health, and then
Mm,
she started talking about it on LinkedIn, and now she has her own podcast as well. And
wow.
so it's been more eye-opening to see everybody, as a normal person versus like people up on a pedestal. It just kind of levels it out a little bit and being able to see all the sides of people.
And it sounds like everything you're doing, whether it be with Stage Guide, helping businesses grow and find clarity with what their goals are, with the podcast, helping
Mm.
people share their stories, there's this underlying theme of just helping people.
Mm,
And is that drive to help people, is that something that you've sort of cultivated along the way, or is that just innate to you as a person, as a part of your character? Where does that drive to help people come from?
mm. I'm like, that's you're like the second or third person recently to say that. I'm like, I don't know. Am I really helping anybody? I don't really know if that's true. But it keeps being reflected back to me. So I appreciate that. So thank you for saying that. I I think it was more that I wanted to show something different. I became I think I was really burnt out from being in Big Law and the support that I role that I was in, and I wanted to be the opposite of the way that I was treated. And so I think that's really where a lot of this is coming from, and that I think people are really not to take it to a deep place, but I think a lot of people are suffering, right? They're suffering either in silence or they don't know, they think they're alone, and so much of that is not true. A lot of people are going through the same things. And so I don't work for any of those firms now, and that is the privilege where I get to either share their stories for them. I've done that in the past as well, which is like, what do you want your firm to know, or what do you wish your firm knew? People have shared their stories with me, and I post it for them either on their behalf or anonymously. And so I think it's more about just speaking up and speaking out, but I guess that could be helping. I have a hard time. I'm trying to, that might have to be like a therapy thing that I have to work on. Um, so I'm just trying to show all the different sides and show that you can be nice and legal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing, is you're kind of demystifying the legal world for a lot of people.
Mm.
And can you speak maybe about why you think that that is sort of a mystifying thing for so many people? Why so many people kind of, when it comes to the legal space, kind of are almost sometimes, a little bit in the dark and like being there, I guess, to some
Mm.
degree, right?
Yeah, I think it's about perception, right? And it also depends on your experience. I have also met tremendous number of like really lovely lawyers where I'm like, where were you? Where were these like really nice lawyers when I was, growing up through coming up in my career? I just didn't feel like that. Now, some of that I hold myself accountable. I saw them as very, business forward, professional, you get in, you get out. Also, some of that was because of how people were speaking to us and to me, and so then you sort of repeat it back, right? This is how you show up as professional. And again, I think COVID was like a real big eye opener for me. I always just thought of the like the big senior partner like up high in their closed wooden door, and then you started seeing inside their house, right? And you started to see like their office was like a mess, or maybe their kids were running in and your kids were running in, and I think a lot of those barriers started to come down and people became more relaxed. And I think that's when it started to shift for me. And the more people that I talk to, the more that I realize like we're all going through a lot of the same things or feeling the same way. And I'm in the position to be able to share those stories and strategies and tips and whatever,
Right.
right? So it it's definitely shifted a lot because there's still a school of thinking that if you don't have the information, then I'm in power,
Right.
and that benefits the one person, right?
Right.
And for the short term. I believe that if you can let more people in, everything can grow. And so that's part of where I'm trying to like demystify, if you will, right? I mean, there's definitely firms that are called black box, right? Where you don't know how how you're going to be paid. It's just there's a lot of uncertainty. And so the more that I can shed light on that to the extent I am able to and have the information, that's why I have the microphone.
Well, Megan, this has been an absolutely awesome conversation. If anybody out there listening to this podcast could use your help and guidance, could use the help of Stage Guide, or would like to tune in to listen to So Much to Say, where can the people find you?
Well, I'm always on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me there, or you can follow our show on Apple. We're on almost every single streaming platform, Spotify, all the things. So our show is called So Much to Say, a legal podcast for people. So we'd love for you to subscribe and follow, or you can connect with us on LinkedIn.
Megan, thank you so much. This was just absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Megan, thank you again.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.